Hi everyone, so today we are going to learn about density and what is going on with that. So first we need to know what it is. Density means how much stuff or mass is in a certain amount of space or volume. So we've talked about each of these individually before, but now we're putting them together. The reason we care about density is because it will tell us a lot about an object. One of the things is it tells us if it will float, if its density is less than water, or if it will sink, if it has a density that's higher than water. It also helps us to identify a substance, which is really important. So here's the equation that we're going to use. D equals m over v. One of the ways that you can remember that is if you just draw a heart and you chop it in half. Then it looks like an M on top and a V on the bottom. So there's a trick to remember that formula. But what you need to be able to do is identify which number is the density versus the mass versus the volume. And we're going to do that with the units. So density will have grams per milliliter or grams per cubic centimeter on it. That's how you know it's a density number. Mass, we know the unit is grams. And volume can be milliliters or cubic centimeters. So let's see if we can figure that out when we work on this question down here. We're going to use our same math format that we've been working on. We're going to write the equation, D equals m over v. So if I look in the question, here are the numbers that I see. Got it. So this number has grams on it, so that must be the mass number. And this number says milliliters, so that must be the volume number. And then the question says, what is the density? So that means I'm solving for density. So that means that piece is going to become x. And then I'm going to put the mass number here. Well, that looks a little bit like a 6. And then I'm going to put the volume number on the bottom. And this is really easy. All you do in your calculator is 5.85 divided by the bottom number, 7.57. So that's how we put that into the calculator. Take a minute and do that now. And we're just going to write out our whole calculator answer. 2787. And now we're going to work on rounding it to the hundredths place. Hundredths means 2 after the decimal. This 2 afterwards means that this 7 is going to stay. So I'm going to end up with 0.77 as my answer. And because it was a density, I can either choose grams per milliliter or grams per centimeter cubed. Because the question had milliliters in it, I'm going to choose the density that has milliliters in it. So I'm going to have that as my final answer. All right, let's try the next one. It's a little bit trickier, but we're going to work on it the same way with our math. D equals m over v every time. So let's see what we can find in the question. I see 420 grams. Grams means it must be a mass number. And then this has grams per centimeter cubed. So that number must be my density. So 10.5 there. So then the question says, what is the volume? Notice that they didn't give me a volume, so that must be what I'm solving for. So watch how we put this in. This number is the density. I know the mass is 420 and the volume is on the bottom and I don't know it. To make this easier to solve, put this over 1. We're really good at cross multiplying. And so if we add that 1, that makes that whole process easier. So if I go this way, 1 times 420 is just 420. And then I write equals. And in the other direction, I just get 10.5 times x. From there, I can just use my algebra to get x by itself. I'll solve by divide by 10.5. So now you have x by itself, and we're just going to put the other side into your calculator. So you'll do 420 divided by 10.5. So that's how you put that into your calculator. And we end up with an answer that's 40, okay? Now, this wants it to be to the tenths place. Tenths means 1 more after the decimal. So I'm going to make that 40.0. Now, because we were solving for a volume, our options are milliliters or centimeters cubed. To choose, you go back to the question. They gave me the centimeters cubed in the question, so that's what I'm going to put there. Okay, now the way that you determined density in the lab was with this process called water displacement. Basically, that means when you put an object in water, it makes the water level increase. So when you get in the bathtub, the level of the water goes up. That's why we leave a little bit of room. Mathematically, what we do is we get the initial volume, we put the object in, we get the new volume, and we subtract. So we do the final volume at the end minus the initial volume. So this one is the volume of the water and the object. And over here, the initial volume is the one that was just the water. So by subtracting those two, we are able to determine the volume of the object. So let's try another example here. And we'll practice with the water displacement. We're going to start the same way. D equals m over v. All right, I see right here that number has grams per milliliter, so it must be a density number. But then over here, they gave me 2 milliliters, they gave me 2 volumes. And notice it says that the water was displaced. So to determine that volume, I have to subtract those two numbers. So I need to do the 105 minus 80. That's the volume that we're actually going to use in our equation. And so that gives me 25. The thing that I don't have, the thing that they ask me for, is a mass. So that's the part that I'm solving for. Let's put all this into our formula. So I know the density over here. I don't know the mass, so that becomes x. And we already subtracted our volume, and we know that that's 25. Now again, this is not straightforward on the calculator, so I'm going to put this over 1 because we're really good at cross multiplying. Okay, then I can do this, butterfly, whatever you call it, okay? 1 times x just gives me x. Then I'm going to multiply these other two numbers together, and I get 196.75. So there's my calculator answer. And it says I need to round to the ones place. So the ones place is right here at this 6, but the 7 after is going to make it bump up. So it's going to become 197, and I was looking for mass. The unit for mass is always grams. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to try the practice questions on the bottom, and I'm going to put the answers up, and I want you to come back and compare. If you got a different answer, try to figure out what you got wrong, or always come ask your teacher. We're here to help you. So here are the answers. Let's see how you did. Good job, guys.